In my state of Massachusetts, there's a place called Freetown, Fall River State Forest. It's also known as the Cursed Forest of Massachusetts. It's one of the most haunted forests in America. There's all sorts of things rumored to happen there. Blood sacrifices, UFOs, ghosts, mysterious orb, giant snakes, strange disappearances, murders, suicides, and the list keeps going. I believe in all that stuff. My friends used to think that all those stories were all bullshit. We got into a lot of arguments about it. After what happened in those woods, though, there weren't any more arguments, as we never spoke of it. It was late June, and my friends and I had just graduated to celebrate not being in that hellhole anymore. My friends and I decided to go on a camping trip. Now, it's not, technically speaking, legal for people to go camping in Freetown, Fall River State Forest, but that didn't matter to us. It was close to where we lived, and we had heard the rumors all our lives, and frequently argued about whether there was any truth to them, as previously mentioned. We decided it would be a good idea to go camp deep into the woods and see if any of the rumors were true, planning to be there for a week. Even though there were only 6 of us, that being me, Travis, Eddie, Tilly, Ryan, and Samantha, we had packed enough beer, soda, snacks, food, and water for 12, as this was to be a week-long party. Courtesy of Eddie, we also had a hatchet for chopping up firewood, and I made sure to bring my Swiss Army knife with me. We got there relatively quickly, and got the boring part of setting up done and over with. After that, the party started. Music was blasting. We were drinking, snacking, and overall doing whatever we wanted. I saw Eddie carve, "Principal Sanchez can suck my dick," into a tree. This really wasn't surprising, given how much the two hated each other. Travis was really good at magic, having been practicing tricks since we were in elementary school, and he was doing some tricks for a while. Ryan and Tilly disappeared for a while, and I didn't want to know what they were up to. Of course, Ryan decided to tell us the details later anyway, when the girls weren't around. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who didn't want to hear it, because Eddie and Travis told him to shut up too. That night, we cooked hot dogs, roasted marshmallows, made s'mores, told scary stories around the fire, and generally just chilled. Nothing weird happened, but the night was a blast. The next morning, however, I was forcefully awoken by Travis. He was gravely serious and said that the group needed to discuss what we were going to do. When I asked him what was up, his only response was, "You'll see." I got up as quickly as possible, and this wasn't like him at all. As it turned out, there were notes typed out on all the tents. They said in bold letters, "Get out." The group discussed what was going to happen, and we unanimously decided that whoever was trying to scare us could go fuck themselves. We tried our best to chill and enjoy the experience, continuing to party and do whatever we wanted. But we all felt like someone was watching us. That night, I woke up in the middle of the night having to pee, so I got out of the tent, closed it, and went to a nearby tree. When I got back, I saw that there was a new note on our tent. It said, "I warned you." I checked the other tents, and they all had notes saying the same thing. I woke everyone up and showed them. Seamus he didn't know it. Samantha and Tilly, however, were panicking, talking about how we needed to leave. The others and I managed to calm them down, however, and they decided to stay with the rest of us. The next day, we decided that we would set out that night to explore the woods, both for fun and to see if we could find the asshole screwing with us. We decided it would be safest to go in pairs, so that we each had backup if needed, but we would cover more ground in pairs. The pairs were me, Travis, Eddie and Samantha, and Ryan and Tilly, to no surprise. We each headed out in our appointed directions. The feeling that the woods were giving off was ominous, somber, and the feeling of being watched was ever present. As we explored, Thomas wouldn't shut up about how he thought this was a bad idea and how we should regroup and leave. It started becoming really annoying after a while, and I asked him to shut up. He got pissed and stormed off. I really didn't care, so I continued in the direction that I was heading. I didn't find anyone, though something weird did happen. I suddenly smelled the most foul, rotten smell I think I'd ever experienced. I looked around and saw two vivid, glowing blue eyes watching me from a nearby tree. I ran in the direction of the eyes and saw what looked almost like a fox running away. It wasn't running on all fours, however, but its hind legs. It was also missing its tail. As it ran away, the stench faded with it. I shook my head, not believing what I had seen, and went back to exploring. A few moments later, however, I heard the sound of a man and woman screaming in the distance to my left. It sounded like Eddie and Samantha, so I started running in that direction and met up with Travis and the others along the way. When we got to where we'd heard the screams, we were horrified at what we saw. There was no sign of Eddie, but we saw Samantha, or rather what was left of her. She'd been impaled on a tree on the back of her head, the branch sticking out of her mouth, wide open in a scream of terror. That wasn't where it ended, though. Her clothes had been torn off in shreds and were on the ground near the tree. Her breasts had been hacked off, most likely after her impalement, as they were under her, soaked with blood. She'd also been cleaved halfway up the middle. There was dark crimson everywhere, and Samantha's body continued to steadily drip, with blood falling onto the wet grass with soft splats. I'd seen a lot of fucked up shit, having lived in the worst part of my shithole town, but this was beyond even what I'd seen, and I'd felt sick. I heard Tilly screaming and someone else vomiting. After that, we decided to get the hell out of there. Tilly brought up Eddie, saying we needed to find him, but Travis said that he was probably dead too. This turned into an argument because Tilly and Ryan wanted to go find Eddie, while Travis and I said that we had to get out of there. They reluctantly agreed to leave when I said that we'd call the police when we got out. When we got to the cars, we stopped and stared at the van. Its windows had been shattered, the tires slashed, and the engine missing. "My van! My fucking van!" I heard Ryan yell. "We've got bigger issues than your van. Snap out of it!" I snapped at him. "Fuck you! My van was worth more than all of us could..." Ryan was cut off when Tilly screamed as a man wearing a t-shirt, leather jacket, jeans, and a silver spiked hockey mask came up behind him and dug what looked like Eddie's hatchet into his head. "I don't like whiny, entitled assholes," the man said, calmly in a raspy voice, as he pulled the hatchet out and continued to hack at the body, blood spurting as he chopped and chopped, the dull thuds of the hatchet, then squishy tearing of flesh, and the loud crack of bone, all ringing out in the forest. "What did you do to Eddie?" Travis asked angeredly. The man laughed, a sinister, maniacal, villainous laugh. "Your friend? Well, you saw what I did to the girl? What I did to him." He trailed off, laughing the same evil laugh as before. "First I knocked him out. I cut out his tongue so that he couldn't scream, and then I made sure he was awake before I continued, so that he could feel everything I did next. Once I knew he was awake, I cut off his genitals. He tried to scream. Oh, how he tried. But he couldn't. From there, I cut off his ears, and I knocked out his teeth. I then... Oh God, no, please stop! Tilly screamed, her eyes crying out. The man laughed once more. "You're the ones that wanted to know what I did to your friend. Now, as you may have noticed, I've made it so that you can't escape using that van. There's a reason for that. We're going to play a little game. You're going to get a chance to escape here. To do so, you've got to run and hope I don't catch up. When the game starts, I'll give you a 5-second countdown, and then I'm coming for you. Do you understand?" We nodded. Good. He stepped back a foot or so. He then chucked the hatchet and laughed as it hit Tilly in the back of the head with a sick, squishy thud and crack. She then dropped to the ground. Game begins now. Travis and I took off running, and I heard him counting from the distance. Luckily, I knew where we were going and where we were. However, we heard him shout, "1!" and took off, very quickly gaining on us. Or so it seemed. When we got about 10 feet away from the edge of the woods, he stopped and just watched us leave, turning around when he couldn't see us anymore. After that, we walked to my house and called the police, giving them a full report. When they investigated, they found the bodies, with Eddie's being just as mangled as the killer had said, Ryan and Tilly's bodies being even more mangled than when we'd seen them. But there was no trace of the killer. Travis and I stopped hanging out after that, not even really speaking anymore. Travis was haunted by the shit that happened that night, and he never really recovered from it. He started abusing antidepressants and other drugs, and eventually overdosed. I don't know whether he meant to or not, but the result is the same either way. I acted upset and sad at the funerals of my friends. But how could I be so upset when the plan went so well? Yes, I planned it. All of it, except for what happened to Travis, though. I can't say I'm too upset about it, as that's the last loose end tied up. But why would I do this? How did I do it? Well, you see, they all deserved what they got. Let's start with Ryan. He was rich, entitled, and a massive piece of shit. He was the biggest example of a stereotypical entitled rich kid that I'd ever seen. He bragged about his money, looked down on and belittled those with less than him, and acted like a complete and total entitled asshole whenever things didn't go his way. He was especially shitty when it came to restaurants. He'd even throw his drinks or food at the waiters and waitresses if one little thing was off. Total piece of shit. There was also an incident where someone tried to blackmail him about something that he'd done in his past. he wouldn't be straight with any of us about what he did or why it was so bad. The only reason he even bothered to hang out with us was because he said that he liked us and felt bad for us. The real reason is we were the only ones who would put up with his shit to some degree. Tilly was cool, until she started dating Ryan. After that, she started thinking and acting just like him. Eddie was the biggest piece of shit of them all. He was the star player of the football team. That's not why he's a piece of shit, though. He was a drug abuser and dealer, as well as a thief, bully, arsonist, and animal abuser. And he was allowed to get away with all of it. My issue with Samantha is that she knew the shit Eddie had done and still chose to both date and defend him. Their relationship didn't last too long, because he abused her when they were together. But even after they broke up, she defended and stayed close with him. The only one of them who was any good at all was Travis. But he brought his downfall on himself. As for how I did it was fairly easy, actually. About a month before we went camping, I met a man living in Freetown, Fall River State Forest. For obvious reasons, I won't use his real name, but let's just call him Jim. Jim was homeless and had been chased out of town by the recent anti-homeless legislation that the town had passed. After I befriended Jim, I asked him if he would help me with my plan. If he did, I'd leave everything there for him, and he'd be free to take whatever valuables my friends would be carrying. The only person he wouldn't be allowed to kill was Travis. He'd leave the notes. I'd misdirect the others and make it easy for him to kill them. Then he'd pretend to chase me and Travis, then hide until the coast was clear. Jim happily agreed, and everything was set. And the best part, they think they caught the killer. When they brought him in for questioning, they also did a lineup. His voice and build was remarkably similar to Jim's, and I pointed him out, as did Travis. The man even pled guilty. So, I got away with it, scot-free. Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.